Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Nirwana J. So I will continue the material on subject of research, psycholinguistics and pioneer of psycholinguistics. And I will explain about the pioneer of psycholinguistics. A pioneer is someone who is of the first to enter a certain area, so he must find a way with a benefit from the experience of others. Characteristic for the work of pioneers, so-called pioneers, are the difficulties they went through and the great effort that had to maintain many of the future still missing. According to Big Indonesian Dictionary, pioneer means that which goes before, which goes in front. So the question is, who are the pioneer of psycholinguistics? Let's check it out. Several linguistic figures are interested in studying language psychologically. Von Humbolt was a German linguist who compared grammar between different language with character language speakers. The result of his research showed that the grammar of a nation shows the nation's view of life. Von Humboldt strongly influenced by the flow or rationalism, which assumes that language is a part that cannot be taught in face of classic as on the opinion of empiricism. Ferdinand de Saussure, in his lecture, introduced the important terms in linguistics, namely language and parole. Language means a certain language that is still abstract. Language means general language, while parole is concrete speech. Saussure emphasized that the study of linguistics is language, while the object of psychological study is parole. Therefore, this Swiss linguist is of opinion that you want to study language as a whole, the kinds that they study in the linguistics and psychology. Edward Sapir studies the relationship between language and language thought. Based on his studies, this American linguist and anthropologist conclude that language, especially its structure, is an element that determines the structure of the human mind. He also added that linguistics can contribute to Gestalt psychological theory as well otherwise. Leonard Bloomfield, in the development of his knowledge, a lot influenced by two exciting schools of psychology, namely behaviorism and mentalism. At first, this American linguist studied that language with a mental approach. He argued that language begins from giving birth to extrapersonal experience, mainly because of the incarnation of pressure, very strong emotions. Because of the emotional pressure, it will come out, speech or sentence in the form of an emotion, then the desire to communicate comes out in the form of declaration. If this declaration is come out in the form of cursory that out interrogation. After the certain widget mentalist and smell of the behaviorism, Jasper argues that language is not a form of one understanding object but are symbolic functions in the human brain that symbolize the mind. According to him, a single word can be realized in behavior. In this development, there are several psychologists who also study psychology linguistically. John Dewey was an American psychologist who added to pure empiricism. He interpreted childhood language based on psychological principles. He suggested that the classification of words for children based on the meaning understood by the children. Karl Buchler is a German psychologist who wrote a book entitled Part Theory, which states that human language has their function called organon, model their speech, namely things out through apple out sound and the sterling. Combat is a verbal communicative, like apple is requires utterance to another person. The spelling is a description of the main problem that is communicated. Wundt was a German psychologist who first developed a mentalistic theory of language. Wundt described the language of thoughts for generating thought. This happened because there are feelings and movements that give birth to language. Unconsciously, according to Wundt, a sentence is an event or reason that occurs. Stimulation. Wundt is also famous for his theory of language performance. Watson equated language behavior with other behaviors such as eating or walking. According to Watson, language behavior is a stimulus-response relationship that equates the behavior of word with object. Thus, this American psychologist addressed to the psychology of behaviorism with because the mental aspect of language. It's just that because of the form of language and form of language. Those are some of the pioneers of psychologistics that I know from the reference I have listed on slide 2 from the last one. The conclusion of this material is the subject of research in psychologistics is the cognitive process of understanding a language acquisition process first. This will be related to the way culture interacts with the two things. The section that will be discussed in this subject of this research is closely related to the psycholinguistics, namely psychology, cognitive science, and language.